Welcome to the Elite Power Moves podcast, where we unlock the secrets to level up in all areas of life. I'll be interviewing some of the world's top performers in their fields so that you can uncover and learn the strategies that have led to their overall success and apply it to your own life. Tony, welcome to the Elite Power Moves podcast, mate. I've been looking forward to having you on here and looking forward to delving into the questions that everyone wants to hear the answers for. How are you doing?
Hi, going really well, Michael. Glad to be on here.
Looking forward to delving in, and we'll get stuck straight into the questions. Tony, you've had a diverse career from NRL ref to now leading charge for the new PNG team coming soon in 2028. How has prioritizing your health and performance shaped your leadership style over time?
I think, to be fair, it's probably been sacrificed at different times because of the leadership role. The roles that I've had and been involved in elite sport, sometimes you spend a lot of your time when you're not involved in it as either the athlete, creating an environment for them to perform at their best, but sometimes that your own health and well-being suffers. That's the environment that we're in. I think what you learn as you get more and more experience, you've got to take hold of your own health, well-being to perform at your best. And if you don't do that, you're probably letting yourself down, but you're also letting those around you down, not only your family, but also the people that you're involved with.
Yeah. I think it's a good question that everyone needs to hear, because when we're climbing this mountain of success, like we're obviously going to go through those periods where we have to put it in extreme work. We're going to have to like sacrifice along the way. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question, I guess, is what's one practical habit that you commit to daily that keeps you mentally and physically sharp?
Yeah, I think what I've learned over the years in certainly working closely with yourself over the last 12 months is to ensure that you've got an hour, and it might seem selfish, but an hour a day for yourself. And I don't do it just for yourself to get away and be that, but it's to take control. You can quickly have an inbox that is full, back-to-back meetings, miss your meals, and doing that. But that hour, whether it be physical training, whether it be some mindfulness, whether it just be just spending an hour of downtime, that hour a day and that preparation sets you up for the rest of the day. So I think to have the ability to have an hour of your day on a particularly in high pressure times really sets you up to perform at your best, but also be at your best. You know, I've come through an era where we used to say we'll catch up on sleep when we retire. That's a false suggestion. That's a fallacy. The fact is that that hour that you wrestle back affects the rest of your day when you're awake, but it also allows you to sleep better.
Exactly. And I think it's important that like leaders like you are identifying behaviors that were taught to us as kids. Because like as you know, me and you vibe on like, generational health and what we were taught, and work hard, grind, drink coffee. And there's a different era of executives, and people are starting to realize that you can either be at the top of the mountain, burnt out and disconnected, or you can be up there energized and refreshed. So obviously it's important to build that foundation of what you know. And I guess you and me both know if we don't do these habits, we're not performing at our best. We're not going to peak perform.
Yeah, I think, as I said, if you can set a system up that's consistent, you're doing that 5 out of 7 days, that's really, really good for you. If you can do 7, that's great. Realistically, sometimes for me, because of workload, travel, sometimes it can't be that, but I know that if I move away from that, my presence with my family, my presence with my partner allows me not to be at my best, as does my workplace.
I think
It
that
impacts as well.
I think the thing that you touched on too is like the emails and the busyness, and we get trapped in the bubble. You know what I mean? Like we're sort of, how do I get out of it? So I guess a good follow-up question just for this one to finish off this question is like, how did you first get out of that bubble of busyness? Like, what was the thing that just that said, I'm gonna, start crafting this time for myself? Because most people live in that world of I'm too busy and I don't have time. So, what's one tip that you could give someone on that?
For me, it was about, I probably read a couple of books. I'm mad into research. I come from a data industry in rugby league that um, we know everything that happens on the field. We know all of what our athletes do. Um, so when I looked at, was I performing at my best? I probably wasn't. The second thing was, I want to enjoy the rest of my life. I want longevity. And I started to feel I got to a point and an age in my life where I wasn't sure I was going to be um, the master of my own destiny in regards to that. So I stopped and I said I've got to stop, and that's where we got in contact to be able to plan it out. Uh, I just think you've got to approach it in some ways how we've approached our work. You've got to set it, you've got a calendar, you've got to put it in your calendar, and you've got to have some thought and process around it. The other thing that I learned at the same time was we create busyness and what I call urgency unnecessarily in the workplace. If you are attached to your emails and every time one pops in, you're immediately distracted. And the first job's not complete, and the second thing becomes the urgency. Yes, there's going to be different situations that arise that have to be dealt with quickly. We're in part an industry that's reactive but proactive, uh, and it's also in the media. So there are times where you have to be very proactive and answer quickly. But we create far too much busyness and urgency in the workplace now through emails, text messages, WhatsApps. So I've changed my day a little bit in the workplace as well. In part, I disconnect from the workplace to be able to think. So I won't answer an email for 2 hours and I'll do some work. So those two things coupled, taking a little bit of ownership of my own personal health and well-being, creating an opportunity that and I still haven't got this down pat, that when I'm with my family, my kids and my partner, I'm present and I'm not distracted mentally. And believe me, that's still a work in progress for me. I'm not there. Uh, and then the the other thing is to allow you to use your skills at work because you're employed for a reason at certain levels. And if you can't disconnect from the urgency, you never get to use your ability to think and strategize and do the role that you're asked to do.
Really important what you highlighted, like firstly going back into knowing you needed to make a change, being emotionally intelligent, then building systems and just still identifying that there's areas that you need to improve. That's what a high does. Tony, next question. Resilience is often forged in adversity. Can you share a moment in your career or life where resilience was pretty much tested, and how did you push through in a way that strengthened your leadership muscle?
Yeah, I think resistance is, resilience is a really interesting topic. Obviously, being involved in elite sport and in officiating, it's probably the only industry that you ever go to work where everything you do physically and everything you say is recorded. So very few people go into a workplace and that happens. For our players, certainly everything they do physically is recorded, and most elite sports are now with the advent of television stats and stuff like that. I had scenario where uh, I made a major error on the field. I walked off the field, and it was a point in time where I knew that I probably wasn't going to stay in first grade. Absolutely. At the end of that season, um, the coach, we got a new coach in the referees, and he sat me down, and I had a year to go on my contract, and he said, "You'll never referee first grade again." He said, "You're not good enough." And that's quite confronting. But at that time, and what I know now, he was right. I just said to him, "I'll prove you wrong." And for 14 weeks, we never ever even spoke. I just went to training. He was busy with the first grade referees. And after 14 weeks, he asked me to have a look at a game. And he knows this story now. I didn't give him the game that I did at the weekend. I gave him the one before, and reserve grade wasn't on TV because I'd had a better game. I gave him that. I went to first grade. I did my first grand final under that same coach. He's still a mentor to me. But what he taught me was this: understand the environment you work in, first and foremost. Uh, Work harder than anyone else and are smarter than anyone else in the room, and be true to yourself in that, be really honest in your appraisal of how you perform.
Yeah.
Those three elements allow you to gain a confidence that allows you to push on. And then you must be able to accept, um, whether this is the right word or not, feedback, and in some cases, criticism. And you've got to be able to decipher what's white noise and what's real. And when it's real, you've got to be able to be um, mature enough to handle it. So if you get feedback from your staff or you get feedback from that, they're the elements that I think allow a person to be resilient and come through the other end better, and a higher performer than what they've just experienced. Adversity is the test of a real person. How people handle adversity and how they react is the true test of how they are and whether they will get through it and not blame others. Ultimately, for the majority of things that happen to you, in most cases, you're responsible. And once you realize that you're responsible, you can change your behavior
Yeah.
or improve your performance.
That's a beautiful answer. And it really leads to the first pillar of performance, which is your belief system, your identity. As we know, in EPM especially, we work off that foundation, that identity, the habits that we create from our gene data and our blood work and what we implement into movement, fuel. And I think it's important that we're always not only looking at stats with our sleep and our nutrition, but also looking at ourselves, what I can do better. And I think you nailed it right on the head because like even Elon Musk, he talks about the reason I am so successful is because I have people around me picking me apart, telling me and you said this to me personally and taught me to tell this to other people. It's like someone's got to tell you the bad parts of yourself. Because sometimes we don't see it ourselves because we're living in this program, in this system, and then start to push you on the good parts that you need to do. Um, but obviously, growing up watching you, ref, it's obviously an honor, and that public scrutiny that you have to the face as well, when you do make a mistake, because most people can make a mistake in a workplace and not have all of Australia, giving them a hard time on the news the next day. So that is definitely a strong resilience muscle.
Yeah, mate. And look, you choose to do it, right? So I don't want anyone ever to think if you're an NRL referee or an AFL umpire, it comes with public scrutiny. So does a player. Like we are very, very lucky to be involved in elite sport. Um, there are so many people who aspire to be involved in elite sport, and you get there through, yes, a little bit of luck, but the majority of people that get there is through some talent, but mostly hard work.
Yeah.
People who are able to handle that feedback, able to accept that this is a sacrifice that you're willing to make in your life to be involved in something very, very special. So yes, there comes with public scrutiny, but some of that is that that creates opportunity for you as well. And as I said, I have been very fortunate to be involved in elite sport for as long as I have. And the opportunity, yes, it comes with public scrutiny, but there's a lot of benefit that comes from it. But that's part of whatever business you choose to be in.
Yeah. I don't think anyone can make it to the top of the success ladder without being dragged down by others anyway. Like I've not seen one successful person or really strong leader that hasn't been through the adversity or dragged down or, it's just the way it is. And it's like the life trying to drag you back down to this place where you're supposed to be, and not elevating you to that success. Tony, the next question, Tony Archer, many leaders talk about work-life balance, but they often mislead that term. From your experience, how do you manage your energy, recovery, and boundaries so you can sustain peak performance without burnout?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting work-life balance is one of the terms and a popular term for a period of time. To get it right, and let me tell you, I'm still very much a work in progress, as you know, Michael. When I get that little text message from little brother and big brother watching me when I'm not on track, it's about balance. It's really about balance. Um, Not one part do you separate work life because they all intertwine. You have a difficult morning at home and go into the workplace, that mood and behavior transfers into the workplace. Similarly, if work goes in a certain direction, that then impacts on the home life. So, as much as we would say we want to separate them and have a work-life balance, it's actually about balance of our life, in my opinion. Um, and those come down to that. I think for a lot of people, and I've been included in this for a long period of time, we put all really good habits into one area of our life. And generally, if those who are trying to climb the mountain, we put that into the workplace. So we'll be really diligent in all these things that we do at work and display all of those skills. And then we're neglecting the other parts. So that's why I say it's an overall balance. And that's when we perform at the best. If you research high performing students in the HSC, they've generally got, they're not just pure students, uh, playing sport, they're playing a musical instrument, they're involved in the drama club, they're doing volunteer work. That's because it gives a balance. It's the same for what we need as we progress. That I think there's some real key pillars though, and that is be really honest in your communication in both sides. Your managers or your direct reports, you let them know if you've got a problem without even having to go into the detail. I'm really transparent with my staff if I've got something happening. They generally pick it in me. So I've been in PNG for 2 years. I have two managers and they'll pick, am I okay? I'll pick if they're okay. Um, and generally that hasn't evolved out of the workplace because they're aware of that. Similarly, if work's gone in a certain way, certainly talk to my partner about that.
Yeah.
Share that. They're the things that allow you to have some consistency in that. And then it also allows you then to be able to disconnect yourself for a period, be that hour or whatever, back just to get the mind and the body back in balance.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because it just made me think of my daughter Erica. She's studying HSC. She done a marathon here in Spears Point, like a 22 half marathon. She also plays an instrument, and it's the same with us. We need to have like those buckets of recovery, times to stop when we're climbing the mountain, when we know we're getting close to burnout, our health, like our fuel, our sleep, our, making sure we're getting our movement on. Then we've got the relationship bucket, but also our hobbies and things we love doing, because I think a lot of people are climbing the mountain of success going, I can't stop, I can't do all this stuff because I'm not going to achieve. And that's why I see a lot of leaders not actually going all in like you do, like you did on that next phase of life, because they can't fathom the time they have to stop to build the system to create more energy that will create more time and more freedom.
Mm.
And I think it's obviously what a lot of people are realizing, that we need to have like work-life balance is a myth. You know, that's why I took Zane and Lou to the Elite Performance Series with Morello and Ruzi and Matt Elliott, and they loved it, and it's just entwining what we do. I think it's an important trait that you talked about is like having like being able to talk to your partner about stuff if there's stuff that's on your chest. Like we can have that good relationship where you can sort of share energy and let them know. Like, you know, it, let them know emotionally, intelligently that like I'm not okay at the moment. There's a few things going on. And I think that sort of clears the energy out for us to sort of like dis disconnect from the work stress and just come back into that presence. Um,
Yeah,
Tony,
it gives you the extra opportunity to um release some of it.
yeah,
You're sharing that. In my case with Leanne, I can share where I am here. And, one of the things that she does regularly is when I'm in a high pressure period in PNG, and if she can do it, she'll come to PNG.
yeah,
Probably don't see a lot of her, but when I come back and I come home, she's there. In high pressure situations, that really supports me. And I try to do the same when I can for her as well. That's just one of the systems that we've worked out.
yeah, it's definitely the same with me. And I think that the like studying high performers and obviously Elite Power Moves podcast is about interviewing the world's top performers in their fields. Like the most common thing I find is they do have a strong relationship. They have a long-term relationship and they have a really solid relationship because look like business, health, relationships are hard as well. And as you said at the start, being present like is the most common thing. It's not like, some people don't like to admit it the most, but all men share that. All high achievers share that same thing, including myself. Like we're always working on that muscle, like because we've got so
Yeah.
much cognitive overload of everything else, and there's that deep down like man instinct that we've got to provide. We've got to, you know, give. But the most important thing we can give is our presence, our time. You know,
Yeah. And what I think we also do is we spend so much time in the workplace working on solution as opposed to listening to our partners. And that's sort of something that I need to be better at. And even with my kids, you know, uh, uh, put the phone away from me. And I've got to make a deliberate effort to do that so I can sit with them. Even when I jump on line with my kids who are still studying, and do the homework with them and the testing of the assessments, but make sure the phone's away when I do that.
yeah,
Not try to have that distraction, particularly when I work in a role where most of the time I'm away.
yeah. It is definitely like a very common thing that I've seen through generational dominoes. Granddads taught our dads to toughen up, grind, don't ask for help, work hard, you got to provide. And it's a generational health thing, like a
Mm.
generation thing that we've seen. And like men like you that step in that domino that gets passed on from generation to generation, I admire. And I have all the time in the world for because it is something that we're passing on as habits to our kids to be present because they're jumping in, Tony, as you know, they're jumping into AI. Uh, Click a button, fast food's at your door. There's going to be when Zane's 40, there's probably going to be robots flying us around, and there's a choice of them to be either mindless or mindful. And if
Yeah.
we can teach them now to be mindful, then that's one of the best lessons we can teach them because they're stepping into this realm where,
Yeah.
being present
And
is not going to be, it's going to be harder.
and that's one of the important aspects for my kids. It's sport or music. It takes them back into that area of mindfulness.
Yeah.
You're away, you're in group environment or individual environment, you're testing yourself, you're playing it, you're learning a new musical instrument, right? That's hard, but it's also something I've got to concentrate, focus on, and it's not someone else to give me the answer for it.
Yeah.
It's not instantly solvable. And there's a tendency for, and we're as guilty as as anyone, to get an instant, quick solution to everything we have. And we just went back to those that come through all the adversity and the time. That's what we've got to create for our younger generation. Go and learn a new musical instrument that's really hard. Go and even simple things that we go back to. Go and learn to ride a bike. Yeah, we've got kids that don't ride bikes, don't know how to climb a tree. Um, and so the more my children are involved in sport or learning a musical instrument, and doing things outside of that, that's giving them opportunity within their developing brains to really um, solidify that mindfulness, which they're going to need as they get tested through adulthood.
Yeah, it's 100% like we can be the best leaders at work and our teams, and that's where a lot of our energy goes because we're leading big teams and big projects, but we have to be the best leaders at home.
Hmm.
Um, Zane can't speak yet; he's saying words, but ever since he was a baby, I tell him three things every day. I say, "I'm so proud of how resilient you are." Because it's proven when you tell kids that their performance increases because they're going to go through periods of like we all do of high stress and shit's going down in life. I tell him I'm so proud of how strong he is, and I tell him to look outside and let's be present.
Hmm.
So I'm wiring that into his identity now. So
Absolutely.
knows that. It's just one habit that I introduced to him, and I'll keep on doing that because I know what his future is going to look like.
Hmm.
Um, Tony, I bet you're a great dad, so I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting your kids one day when we come down Sydney. But look, the next question, Tony, when leading teams or organizations, how do you cultivate resilience and well-being in others, your employees, partner, colleagues, particularly under high pressure situations?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. I think uh, the two best ways to get resilience um, and commitment out of staff or people generally is they understand with clarity where this project or the organization's going. The second part of that is understanding what part they play in that.
Yeah,
When you can get those two elements present, and believe me, I'm confident enough to say that I've never achieved it with 100% of all of the people involved in any team, department, organization that I've been working with. I don't think anyone can get 100% at that. But those that you do, they develop not only resilience and dedication, they also perform at their best for the longest period. And they also then blossom into wonderful future leaders or leaders as they go through. Clarity of where you're going and where you need to go and what it takes to get there and what role they play. That's really important because that then gives them the ability to know how they can contribute. And if you can steer them on what the function of contributing is, they'll bring the passion and the desire to do that. You won't instill without showing them the direction, the emotional attachment that you need to work really hard and to be a high achiever at whatever position they're involved in. They need to see how they fit because shared success is really important success, and not everyone gets to get a ring on the field when they win the premiership. There's player in our case 19 to 30 who doesn't play on that day.
yeah,
It's the same in organizations. It's going to be someone, generally a leader who's up the front receiving the award.
Yeah.
Um, Seeing that, um, so if you don't have shared success across the organisation by the contribution of those people, I I don't see how you can get buy-in.
Yeah.
But maybe other people have a better skill at it. But I certainly want our team to know the direction of where we're heading on a project or the direction of where the department's going over the next 3 to 5 years. Want them to feel valued and know what is their role in that, and then we're going to share our success together, whether that be public facing or private facing.
That's probably one of the best answers I've got for that question because it's great leaders cultivate great leaders. Like they're also going back to what we've talked about in the podcast already. They also cultivate the space to be able to create because you can't create in the busyness. You can't create in the bubble. Like we got
Yeah,
to cultivate space to design the destination, you know. Tony Archer, we're taking the EPM guys to Mount Everest, where the goal is we're looking at doing, 20 kilometers a day. That's our goal, that's our marker. Your role is to carry this and this and this, to provide that. And my role is to make sure I've got this and this, and we're gonna make sure
yeah,
we're at this point. And when you can it's pretty much, I think a good leader is like a conductor. Like they can just pull up the person that needs to do that task and they can do it with just pretty much, waving a finger because they know
yeah.
that is going to fit right into that role. It's like the halfback, the 5'8" and the halfback, they're just in sync. Um, so
Yeah,
really,
so yeah, I've been really lucky. I had, as I said before, the guy I spoke around in relation to my career was a guy called Robert Finch. Robert Finch was a successful first grade player, ran uh, head of footy at the Raiders, Newcastle Knights, was involved in the Mariners with Super League. And if you ever want to talk about pressure, try to set up a Super League club in Newcastle. Um, he then took on the referee's role and he taught me about team. He taught me about the NRL environment. He taught me to have difficult conversations with people to perform better and not to perform. But he also brought in this collectiveness of success. You can't do the job as an individual. No one can. So collective success is so important and recognizing that and where you fit into the puzzle. They're the best teams and they're the best organizations.
you and Ruzi definitely have so much in common. Your values and philosophies definitely very much in common. Like the way I like to work with my team is like you've got to be there to design the destination. Like we said, like this is Dan Martell who I follow as well, who I'm always learning off leaders. Like it's the 10-80-10 principle. Like 10 because all leaders like they get trapped in the bubble and the emails and everything because they think they got to do everything because no one's gonna do it the way they're gonna do it. And that's the truth is if you have a company or you're the best in your field, no one's ever gonna do it the way you do it. But if you can have the 10% where you design the picture, like this is the clear path, here's the SOP, the checklist, here's the times that we need to finish it, here's your roles. And then you can get the 80% of the team to take that and work with it and design it, put it together. So it's like 80% or 90% done. The last 10% is coming in and looking over the checklist and looking at the destination, making everything aligning with the vision that you had. And that means it's bloody 100% awesome because you've just freed up 80% of your time and you've got leaders that are now trained and coached because you went into the last 10% and you've cultivated like lessons that they could have done something better. And I think good leaders also give great advice in a great way. They're great leaders are coaches, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be a coach. I think that's a two, and what you say is exactly right. And they are the best environments. It takes a twofold um, thing. You've got to the leader's got to be confident enough to give up. You've got to become vulnerable to to have someone else do it.
Yep.
So showing your team some vulnerability is a good thing, I believe, as a leader,
Yep.
and allowing them to cultivate their own approach to something is really important. The leaders just, I think in times when I've failed as a leader, it's been when I've tried to jump in and do it for them.
Yep.
And is that's that real balance you've got to get. And best leaders allow them time whilst they've got that opportunity of the 10% to come back in.
It's definitely like going back to presence and this, what we're talking about now, they're two big muscles that we have to resist from doing the work. Because again, that leads back to not being present because we're doing all this extra work that we shouldn't be doing. We've got
Yeah.
all like we're thinking of everyone's else, their list and their job tasks and what they should be doing. And when we can detach from that, that's where successful men are made. That's when they climb the mountain of success, having like systems that are built in their health, their relationships, their families, the way they lead. And it all does come down to like the habits first, our belief system. We don't have to do it all. Tony, one of the last questions, what's one practice or habit or mindset shift someone listening to the Elite Power Moves podcast could implement tomorrow to boost their leadership, health, and resilience?
I think the first thing would be to sit, look at what creates distraction and busyness away from what their role is. You 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 need to take a step back. I think no one improves unless they take a step back and they look and they honestly look at what they're doing, both from a work perspective, a personal perspective. You take the step back, you look. The two things that will take you away from what performing well, in my opinion, is distraction and busyness. Those two elements take you away from what you want, the direction of what you got to do. When you can identify what they are and what those keys are, that's when you implement it.
Yep.
That's when you can start to implement it. I think it's great to say what's the one thing. Um, I don't ever think that there is one thing. I think everything comes with a package. There's
Yep.
elements to doing it. Yes, you can get up every morning and elect not to drink coffee. You can elect to drink water and pink salt. Some would suggest that's probably not the nicest thing to have in a morning, Michael, but I know you're a massive fan. But one thing isn't going to solve anything. And I don't say that flippantly. It's great to have a thing. And I think that's where sometimes we all get caught up in that. But what I do know is this, a consistent habit and a consistent change and improvement in a habit will make dramatic change on the rest of the performance.
I think you really answered that question the best way it should ever be answered. And the first thing is you need to stop and assess your calendar. Like, because we're energy systems, we all know that. We run systems in EPM, we're creating energy elsewhere, and it's how we implement that energy into our calendar. Like if we are looking at our calendar and seeing energy blocking things that we shouldn't be doing, or we're not delegating properly, like having that habit frees up your time because you're going to see energy blocks. You're going to see what you're doing wrong. And look, most successful, multimillionaires would have extreme tracking on their KPIs. They have extreme focus in their business. They're looking at all the outside without looking at the inside, you know.
Yep.
And it's when we stop and start looking in the inside and what am I doing that's stopping me from getting to X, Y, and Z.
And I
Um,
think when you look at your calendar, mate, you look at you should view a calendar with the word, this is my life for the next week.
Yeah.
This is my life for the next month,
Yeah.
because that's what it is. That's effectively what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
And that's why you said at the start, having, mindset, family, mindset, movement, meal times on your calendar. Like it's set
Mm.
that those are times that are part of my habit system.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's when I'm at my best if I'm doing that, as you and I know. If I move away from it because I get too busy, get distracted, get this urgency and busyness, I don't do that. I know I'm starting to move away from what is having me at my best.
yeah. I like to almost think that like your life should have a deload, like training. We've got to have a deload week or a deload end of the quarter. Like there has to be a part where we assess because then we're just going to take off again on that flight in the craziness and be in the bubble and trapped again. Like we need to have set times to assess, which is actually what I'm going to be doing for myself today. Um, Tony, I wanted to come into the famous EPM rapid fire questions, mate. So I'm going to fire about 6 questions at you.
Sure.
So we'll get into those. What's the most important lesson you've learned as a high achiever?
The most important lesson I've learned is that you need to sometimes stop and realize that you've been successful and then go on to the next thing. We have a tendency to go into the next project. And what you just said, that deload component, we need to stop and say, yep, that's been successful, celebrate it, and then move to the next thing.
Yeah. Definitely celebration is what brings in gratitude and it opens up space. It helps us with our central nervous system as well. We feel more fulfilled. What's one daily habit that has the biggest impact, the one single daily habit, you think?
For me, it's correct eating.
Like, it's one of the hardest things as well. If you could,
Probably the one that I achieved the least, but I know it leads then to sleeping better. The other thing is because if I sleep well, I'll get up and I'll train in the morning. As you know, I'm a morning trainer.
yeah,
Then I'll eat better. It's self-fulfilling,
yeah.
self-propagating.
Funny that we all know that one thing that we need to do when the energy system's off. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'd like to put the old head that I know now on that young body, but if you can't, uh, I would say I don't regret. Um, I've been really, really fortunate. I think what you would give them is this: experience everything you can.
Yeah,
You want to have a fulfilling life, which is by experiencing, communicating, and learning. It's like I say to my kids, and as they get to that 18-year age, go and have a gap year. Go and see the world. There's a whole world out there that we tend not to enjoy and appreciate. We're very, very lucky people. And I think that, you know, we're really fortunate, and particularly where growing up and being in Australia, I know working overseas, and I've been overseas a lot. I know that Australia's the greatest country. So for our kids growing up there, it's wonderful, but experience everything.
yeah.
That leads back to the gratitude and the worldliness of people.
It leads back to being present as well. Um,
Correct.
what's the best investment you've ever made in your business and career?
I think it can only be and always has to be investing in yourself.
100%.
Um, it has to be that because your part and your cog in whatever business it's in, the what you actually bring to the table is your knowledge, your enthusiasm, your personality, your drive, your presence. So it has to be back into yourself. That's the only thing you really bring to a company.
Yep. It's always the most successful answer is always yourself because you are the system. Um,
Hmm.
how do you handle stress and stay focused under pressure?
Yeah, I'm probably, and I've had this referred to me, and I'll probably refer to myself as this. I'm a bit of a stress or pressure junkie. Um, I enjoy stress. I enjoy pressure. Um, there's lots of elements of it that I don't, but if you look at what areas I've worked in, been involved in sport, and I've pursued that and sacrificed a lot to get to that. I was an advocate and a prosecutor in court. That requires, there's a pressure element to that. Um, so I probably got a tendency to be drawn to those sort of uh, uh, pursuits. But for me, the pressure is there. But if you're really confident in your process, pressure in part is to be is part of that. If you want a process that is rigorous and thorough, you want it to be tested under pressure. And for me, that includes myself. I want to be able to handle pressure. I think I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
If you look at, um, a lifestyle where you never put yourself under pressure, it's a really lazy lifestyle, and that's not how I want it to be. So I think it's the same in everything I do is I want it to be tested. I want everything to do to be tested, including still testing myself now. Certainly not at the markers or the levels that I had years ago, but still want to be able to test myself. I want to be able to increase every little bit as you can, and that's the success that that you arrive at.
As Andrew Huberman says, stress is enhancing, you know. Um,
Yeah.
we need to have like mantras, music, movement. We need to come from extreme stress to serenity, and be able to,
Mm,
because like you said, like, there's no way to climb the mountain without grinding. Like everyone that's successful has to go through the pressure. Uh,
mm.
but it's just about like using that to enhance your skills, which most successful men like you do. Tony, what's one book or resource you would recommend to inspiring leaders?
That's a really interesting question. I think the best thing that you can have is a network of people, very small group, who will tell you how it is and how you are. So I have a network of people still to this day who have been with me for probably 40 years. I've met them through working with them. Certainly, Leanne now plays a really important part in that regulation of me. Uh, but I still have mates who I've known for 30 years. He texted me yesterday. There's a photo of me in the paper. He said, gee, button three stress on your shirt, things like that. He's just out there watching for me. He'll tell me when my behavior, how I sound, if he sees an interview that I'm really cranky on or something like that, he'll go, mate, what are you doing? He'll test me. He'll ground me, and they're the people. So I think anyone, as you continue to do that, and the higher you go in some aspects, the lonelier it is within the workplace. As I say to my staff, I will find out what happened. You may as well tell me. I may find out in 3 weeks, but I will find out. But that network of people around you is your real grounding thing. Yes, talking to your kids and stuff, but the person who's really going to call you out and say, mate, you are off track here. I've got a couple of mates that do that. And obviously your immediate family is important as well.
Yeah. And that's important to, like you said before, like you just need to know when you got spag bowl on your face. And
Correct.
you got to be strong enough to accept it. And I'm the same, like guys in EPM, all the guys that are part of the community, like I ask for feedback. I'm always wanting to be better. Like, and
Mm.
I'm never going to take it personally because like you said before, we're never perfect. We're not meant to be
Mm.
perfect. Macros aren't going to ever be perfect. Our sleep data is not ever going to be perfect. But as long as we can hit that 80/20, Tony, last question. What's your drink of choice?
My drink of choice? I'm a beer man. I've always been a beer man. My waistline would indicate that I shouldn't be a beer man. So I am a beer man. I love a wine. I'm not a person that drinks for the taste of drink. I drink for the socialization of it.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with having a beer, mate. And I don't think there's anyone who doesn't have one. Mate,
You said that really well, Michael. You said there's nothing wrong with having a beer. My problem is that I might have more than one beer.
I thought with me you were going to say water, sparkling water.
Yeah. Look, I would love to have done that as the person as the person who watches over my health now. But I've got to be crudely honest. It's still a beer.
I actually, the guys that log a whiskey and a beer in their thing, I love it because they've been on it and they know I'm gonna pick it apart, but I'm always also, but
You'd rather they put it in there.
yeah, mate, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Tony. Been absolutely phenomenal, actually getting to know you a lot more, and about your leadership, resilience, your past, and I'm looking forward to getting this episode out to the listeners.
Thanks, mate. Thanks very much for your time. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for tuning in today, and I hope you found the discussion useful. Our goal is to positively impact the well-being of 1 million people's lives just like you by sharing the experience and knowledge of some of the world's top performers. So you don't miss out on any key strategies to help you succeed, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. And if you think you may know someone that would benefit from this episode, join us in our mission of impacting 1 million lives and share it with your friends.